a pleasure to be here, and I am going to try and stay on time, if we can, so you can get out in time for lunch as well. I do have to say, though, that this is a topic that I'm passionate about, so forgive me if I kind of get emotion in here. I am a WASP, and emotion's not a good thing, but I sometimes let it bubble over. But it is something that I feel is very, very important. It's important to all Canadians, whether you're doing business or not, and so you'll hear me get a little passionate. I do a lot of traveling to try and get Canadians out there, and I'm off to Singapore in 3 days' time because we have the inaugural forum for the Canada-ASEAN Business Council, and our Minister, Ed Fast, who's our Minister of International Trade, will be the keynote speaker there. So we are moving in the right direction, just not fast enough, as far as I'm concerned. So what I'm going to do today is give us a little picture about where we are in the global world, what I think we ought to be doing to get us moving faster, and what we at York and Schulich are trying to do to get us moving faster. And then, what can you guys do to help? Okay? How does that sound? All right, let's go then. So, why do we need to be taking advantage of global opportunities? Why can't we be just happy sitting here in the GTA or wherever and not bothering about anything? Well, what I tell my students is, you can be sitting here in the GTA and you're going to be impacted by global opportunities, whether you are actively involved or not. Because if not you, your customers are going to be out there, or your clients, or your suppliers, or your competition. And so you need to be aware of it, and you need to be out there yourself as well. So where are we now? Well, first and foremost, we've got a small economy. Canada's a big country, but our economy is small. So domestic market isn't enough for our business. We have to export. And we're about 40% of GDP in recent years is due to exporting. That's a significant portion. But our share of the world's exports is declining. It's going in the wrong direction. In 1990 to 2000, that decade, our share was about 4.1%. Not large, but given that we are a small economy, not too bad. But now, between 2009, 2012, which is the latest that we've got statistics for, we're down to 2.7. This is not the right direction. Got to be going up. 2013 World Competitiveness Rankings, Canada is number 14. And in 2009, we were number 9. Not the right direction. Why? What is this happening? And it's not because necessarily that Canada's getting worse. It's just the rest of the world is getting better. And we're not keeping up. So we need to be doing that. And in the competitiveness rankings, there are two things that Canada doesn't do well that really affects our rankings. One is, anybody? Productivity. And that's part of innovation. We're not terribly good at innovation. We're great at thinking up ideas. Our universities are coming up with all kinds of great things. Where we fall down is we don't commercialize them. We don't get them out into the market. And that's a big part of where we fail on competitiveness. And the other thing is, and you'll hear this, anybody here own a business? A couple of you, okay. Access to financing. Easy? No. And Canada is probably one of the most difficult countries for particularly small companies to get access to financing. And that hurts our competitiveness ranking as well. So, need to be doing something about that. HSBC, in an article about 4 months ago, predicted that Canada will underperform the rest of the world in trade over the next 15 years. And that just to keep pace, we're going to have to increase trade activity annually by 2.9%. Now, trade is a two-way street. It's not just exporting, it's also importing. So trade, we got to get up by 2.9%, and we can do it. We just have to have, I'm going to call it the guts, to get out there, take some risks because the rewards are worth it. Now, I'm going to talk quite a lot in this lecture about SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. And that's because most of our business is SME. They account for 99.8% of firms in Canada and 63.7% of the private sector employment. But only 2.6% of those are fast-growing, innovative firms. That's a rather low number, right? Hope you agree. And only 1.7% of them are medium-sized firms. Our small firms aren't growing. They aren't becoming larger. And this is a telling statistic for me. 58% of SMEs felt that international activities could be beneficial to their business. This is a BDC survey. But 44% of them have no international activities. They're saying, yeah, it could be good. They're not doing it. Why? I'll answer that a couple slides later on. The DFATE says that only 10.4% of SMEs export. There are other surveys which put that even lower. There's another survey which says there's only 1.4%. I think the 10.4 is probably a little more accurate. But you know what they say about statistics. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. So you can get numbers to prove whatever you want. But the other thing also is these days, global production is increasingly governed by the global value chain. Not everything is made in one place. You make components wherever it makes sense to make it. And if our SMEs can participate in these global value chains, then that increases not only their competitiveness, but their profitability and long-term sustainability. So you have to be getting into these global value chains, which are usually headed by a multinational. And the multinational, increasingly, is in China. These are places we ought to be paying more attention to. And that's why I said we need more focus on our fast growth markets. Our traditional markets, Europe and USA, aren't growing. But other parts of the world are. So the BRICS, everybody's heard of the BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China. Okay? The TIMs, you might not have heard of these more recently. Kind of like, you know, we should have an affinity for this, you know, Tim Hortons, Tim's. Yeah. So Turkey, Indonesia, Mexico, South Africa. These markets are huge and they're growing. And they're growing by leaps and bounds. Willie Crew from KPMG says that by 2015, that's only 2 years from now, that the US and West European consumer spending combined will be only 26% of world GDP. The rest of it's going to come from the fast growth markets. Take Indonesia, a country that I worked in for 5 years and I still go back every year for projects. The middle class in Indonesia, middle class, not talking any the rich or the poor, but the middle class is over 100 million people. That's 3 Canadas. Huge market for Canadians, goods and services. Let's take a look at the share of SME exporters by destination. And this is 2011 data, comes from DFATE. US and Europe, I mean, look at where we're exporting to compared to the rest of the world. Huge portions in our traditional markets. Now the good news is SMEs are actually decreasing what they sell in our traditional markets and are heading better than our large companies into the non-traditional markets. So the blue are the SMEs and the red are the large. Look at China, for example. We've got more SMEs exporting to China than large companies. Take a look at Indonesia, more SMEs. India, quite a lot more. And let me just give you some other statistics on particular countries. I can't remember them, so I wrote them down here. So for SMEs, percent of Canadian exports to India, SMEs have 65% of all our exports to India. Of all of our exports to Turkey, SMEs have 60%. Indonesia, 44%. So our SMEs are actually outperforming our large companies. All right. So for Canada, we've got what the fast growth markets want. We've got food and food processing. And this is particularly good in China, for example. China has big concerns over the quality of the food that they have locally. So buying from Canada, you get a quality assurance. And we've got food processing equipment, et cetera. Agri-food, fresh water. This is one thing that many of us aren't aware of, but this is going to be a major export. And we really have to think about how we're going to do it. Because we've got, I think it's 80% of the world's fresh water.
Well, that's counting the lakes. You're not going to drain them.
Well, exactly. No, it's counting the lakes.
We have about 11% when you talk precipitation, which is what you can use.
Yeah. But the thing is, we got water. A lot of the rest of the world doesn't. Yes. And with global warming, maybe even less. Okay, potash, minerals, oil and gas, all of these things we've got, the rest of the world wants. And we have technological know-how and expertise. And these are the areas that Canadians have an advantage in that we could be doing. We're doing things in these areas, but we could be doing more. ICT, clean technology, aerospace, and this tends to get forgotten sometimes, but education. This is a major Canadian export. And let's not forget it. We've got great education, right? You're all York graduates, right? Come on, then louder. We got great education, right? That's better. I hope you're better than this at the football game. And these markets have what Canada needs. More middle-class consumers. I mean, we have, as I said, a small economy, and our middle class is even smaller than that. So middle-class consumers, low-cost labor, sophisticated manufacturing capabilities, and high-yield investment opportunities. There was a study that the Department of Commerce in the US did, it's a few years ago now, but it was very interesting. Return on investment in Malaysia compared to Canada. Want to guess what it was?
10%.
In which country?
In Malaysia.
Actually, the return on investment then, it was about 8% in Canada. It was 28% in Malaysia. So your opportunities, now, with greater reward, you have greater risk. But is the reward worth the risk? You have to decide that for yourself. But I think yes. So why is it we aren't doing more? The rest of the world wants what we've got. They've got what we want. Why aren't we doing more? Well, these are some of the obstacles that Canada's State of Trade in 2011 identified. It's too far. Distance to producers, over half. Can't identify providers. Language or cultural. Don't speak the language, don't understand how they do business. Tariffs. Foreign legal or administrative. Don't understand it. And lack of management expertise. And that kind of mirrors a study that I did a few years back that concentrated on Asia. I asked Canadian companies, why aren't you doing more business in Asia? And I got 5 answers. Too far, too expensive, I don't speak the language, don't understand how they do business, the US is closer.
Easy way.
Yeah, and the last one, yeah, the US is closer. And we shouldn't be forgetting it. But let's think beyond it as well. Too far, well, we got technology these days. Too expensive, well, if you can't afford a plane ticket and some days in the hotel, and then your business really is marginal. I don't speak the language. Well, we've got tons of people in Canada who do. Hire them. I don't understand how they do business. Same thing. We got tons of people in Canada. We're an immigrant country. Hire them. Or come to Schulich. We'll teach you. Okay? So there's lots of obstacles. There's no question. There's risk, no question. But the rewards are out there. So what are we doing here at York and Schulich? And we're doing a fair bit, I think. We could be doing more, but that's everybody can. We're producing relevant and timely academic research and learning materials. We're translating that research so that it's accessible to business. I mean, how many business people actually pull out, the Journal of International Business Studies? Not many. So we're taking that research through our knowledge mobilization unit. We're putting it in words that people can actually understand and putting it out into things like EDC ExportWise or trade journals, industry journals that people actually read. They don't just sit on a shelf gathering dust, we hope. We're engaging with business leaders. We're out there talking to business, saying, what is it you want? What can we do to help? So it's not just ivory tower, this is what we think you need, or this is what you ought to need, but we're actually going out and asking people, what is it you need? We're connecting SMEs with students for research, consulting, and project management. If you're a small company, you probably don't want to go out and spend thousands on KPMG, but you could spend maybe hundreds on some of our students who are supervised by our professors and get KPMG quality. 601. At York prices. Okay, so we connect. We graduate well-trained, globally oriented men and women for full-time employment or internships, if any of you are in need of an intern. We have our IMBA program, International MBA. We have our IBBA program, the International Bachelor of Business Administration. We've just started a new certificate that's sponsored by EDC, Export Development Canada. Certificate in Managing International Trade and Investment that students get if they do all of the courses and the internship, etc., in addition to their bachelor's. And then we have all of the IBAs, the International Bachelor of Arts, in, I think we now have 11 different areas. So we're training students to get out there and work internationally, globally. And the center that I'm currently directing, which is brand new, not even officially launched, so you're the first to hear this. It'll be launched in November, November 21st, as part of Global Entrepreneurship Week. And what we're trying to do, in addition to all of the others, is provide a portal for international information that's relevant to SMEs. So we're not doing it all ourselves, but we're going to provide links and work with our students and with SMEs, etc. And if you've got any help, advice, etc., I'm definitely open. Because this is a partnership. It's not we do it all. And so why is this important? Well, it's important because exporting, importing, and offshoring, any of this, improves productivity, increases innovation, and there's a lot of research out there which supports this. And if we internationalize our SMEs, then not only does it improve the productivity of the particular company, it improves the productivity of Canada. And it increases the standard of living for Canadians in general. Because I forget what the statistic is, I meant to put it up here and then I forgot the number of jobs which are actually dependent on exporting. Does anybody know that offhand? I can't remember, but it's a fair percentage and very, very important. Have I convinced you? Well, okay, not all of you. All right, I'm obviously not doing it properly then. But what does it take then for an SME to be successful? And first and foremost, you got to have a good product or service. If you don't, then don't even think about going international. you've got to have something that is valuable, that people want. It's got to be good, it's got to be high quality. You can't compete on price. The Chinese have you beat, and so do those in Bangladesh and Vietnam. But quality, we can compete. You need to build relationships and reputation. In any place around the world, with the exception of North America, relationships are critical. They're important in North America. They're critical in the rest of the world. So you need to spend the time building relationships. And that's more than just saying, hi, how are you? Did you have a good trip? You've got to spend a bit more time than that. I mean, I did a session, an orientation session for a company at one point, and that's what the person told me. Yeah, I build relationships. I ask them if they had a good trip, and then we get down to business. Not quite the way most of the rest of the world works. And you've got to have a good reputation. And that reputation can come by being part of a global value chain, or it can come by having a good web presence. It can come by word of mouth. But you have to make sure that you've got a reputation, a good reputation, and make sure that you keep it up, because it's very easy to lose a reputation. And once you lose it, really hard to get it back again. People have long memories. And by relationship as well, it means you got to be in a country through thick and thin. If you've been strategic, so you choose your market strategically, what fits for you, and then you be there. Indonesia, another example. Bambaje was there in a big way all through the 80s, etc. We're starting to make some headway, and then 1997 happened, financial crisis. They had a country manager who was willing to stay there. His wife was Indonesian. It would have cost them peanuts to keep an office open, and they left. Now they want to go back in again. And they're going back in, but it's taken them a long time to build back up again. Whereas if they'd had that person there on a retainer, which would have been peanuts, as soon as things started to pick up, they could have been back in immediately. So you need to be strategic, but then stick it out. You need to maintain a technical edge, and that means we hear so much about IP protection. And that is important, but the thing is, somebody's going to get it somehow. So what you need to do is continuously innovate. So you make sure that the technology that you're transferring over to wherever it is not your cutting edge technology. It's the one that you're about to supersede. And then you keep moving forward. You also need some legal advice, because where do you register your IP? How do you need to register it? All of that gets very complex, differs by country. So I'm not going to get into that. And you need to develop local knowledge. Understand what it takes in that particular country to do business. Indonesia, again, you want to set up a company there. Well, Indonesia has 10 different land laws, land ownership laws. 4 of them are relevant to foreigners. And if you get the wrong one, you don't have the ownership you thought. Another example, one of our big grocery companies wanted to go into Hong Kong, went into Hong Kong. Didn't quite realize that the climate in Hong Kong is different than in Canada. Very humid. So they didn't package their cereals and their cookies in the right way. So you got mushy cornflakes and squishy cookies. And they didn't do very well. So they pulled out. But a little local knowledge, figuring out what do I need to do to adapt my product or my service to this particular culture or climate, goes a long way. And then, and this is key for doing business internationally, you got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. Nothing is going to go the way you think it's going to go. There's always going to be something that comes out of the woodwork at you, and you think, oh my God, never thought of that. And so then you need to be able to adapt. You also have to be able to work on a 24-hour clock, because nighttime here, daytime in Asia, and 9 o'clock at night, I find I do a lot of business, because that's the start of their day, the end of mine. So I don't get to the office at 7:30 in the morning. Can't do it all. Okay, the other thing, when I talk about what it takes to be successful, I tried at one point to distill it down. I mean, you've all heard of the 4 Ps for marketing. I've got the 5 Ps for international business. Product, got to have a good product or service. Partner, because if you don't have the local knowledge, go with a local partner. Choose them well, build that relationship, but the partner is very, very important. You got to have patience. You're not going to do a deal in a week. They want to know you. And they want to know, can I trust you? Are you not one of these fly-by-night people that come in on a trade mission and then go back to Canada and I never see you again? Persistence. That means you don't just go once. You go back. You have people on the ground if you can. And then I had great difficulty with my last one. So I finally decided to call it payola. By that I mean financing. But I couldn't get another P for financing. But because you do need money to be doing business internationally. And so just to end, and I think I did keep it within my time, we need to be a little more risk-taking if we're going to capitalize on some of the opportunities out there. We have to go beyond just being a lifestyle company. So many companies in Asia, I heard when I was doing some research, what do you think about Canadian companies? And the biggest thing that I heard was, Canadians just aren't serious about doing business in Asia. They're too comfortable at home. Yeah. And that's true, we've got a nice life here. But how long will it stay that way if we're not out there taking some risks to get those rewards? And we need to go beyond just having lifestyle companies and looking at growth and taking advantage of the opportunities. So with that, the other thing I should say, you all heard the comment, Canadians are nice, right? Well, I heard that in my survey as well too, but I went and asked some people, what do you mean by that? And it was very instructive, some of the answers I got, because some of them said, well, it means we can take advantage of you. So, we need to be a bit careful. But I hope I've convinced some of you anyway to get out there in whatever way and help Canada increase our global competitiveness rankings. And in the meantime, bringing some money into the country. Kopkumat, terima kasih. Thank you very much.